Not all dogs arrive enjoying toy play, but this is something I encourage all of my clients to work on, as it has such an impact on their relationship, as well as providing a really useful reinforcer in their training. So in this video, you're going to see me playing with several dogs and how I'm developing motivation for play and how I use this as a tool in training. Now, these are young dogs who've had some level of play in their lives right from the off. If you're struggling to develop play in your dog, I'd always encourage you to work alongside a trainer. And in the meantime, work on developing games using food. So food chase games, food flicking games where the dog is the goalkeeper and you're the shooter, catching food, finding food. And these are all going to help with engagement and relationship building. Now, this video is focused on the 4 elements of toy play and shows you some of the techniques I use to develop this. So let's see what the 4 elements are. So firstly, motivation and desire to play with you. It takes skill to play with dogs. They're all individuals and have a stronger or weaker aspects of the predatory kind of sequence, which you need to observe and put into your play. You may need different types of toys. Don't go for something too fancy with lots of different choices of material for the dog to hold on to. Encourage the same kind of texture and keep it simple. Secondly, the retrieve. And by this, I mean a play retrieve. The dog wanting to start the game again after you've allowed them to win the tug game, which is important for confidence building. Then you've got the control element. This is about teaching a release word and having rules for your game to restart. And then finally, you can use it as a reinforcer. You will see on the young dogs I work on it, there's a combination of this going on. So this is mainly element 1, but you'll see parts of element 2 in there. So motivation and desire, keeping the movement going in the play. You can see I don't shake the toy too much, but I'm just kind of keeping the pressure, feeling the dog's teeth as he goes. I'm not really pulling it hard. He's only a young baby. Okay, so we're running around, guiding him as much as we can on the toy, just going with what he's giving me. So I'm trying to encourage him to pull back there just by constant pressure, allow him to win it. I want him to know if he puts effort in this training, he reaps the rewards, and that's the case for all of the training. Now you can see me running around doing a little bit of body contact. I'm trying to teach him that hands coming towards him aren't going to be grabbing at the toy. You can see with that head-on approach, he's a little bit unsure. Okay, I'm bending over, I'm directly towards him, and that's what he's a little bit unsure of. You know, that will come over time once we've built trust in the relationship. Accidentally took the toy off him then, which you don't want to happen ideally. Okay, just swap hands. I'm saying the word run every time I take off running. I want to create an emotion to that word. You can see there he was overtaking me, so I turn around. I don't want to be chasing him. Okay, a little bit of hands on, and again my body's away from him, much happier to come in. I think I kind of accidentally kind of take the toy off him again here. Didn't really want to do that. Wanted him to keep the hold of the toy. Okay, doesn't matter, it's going to happen. So again, back into our movement, back into running around. Okay, backing off and encourage him into me with that toy. Yeah, a little bit head on. As soon as I turned sideways, he was a little bit happier there. You know, a little bit of kind of unsureness. He has been chased by children in the family, so they've had different rules to their play that I'm trying to undo in these scenarios. Little tug, come into me head on, tug. So I'm doing a 2-second tug and letting him win just to try and build his confidence with that. Yeah, do you want to come in towards me? I'll have a little tug. I'll let you win it, or we'll do some kind of running around together. So you can see how I'm working on that element of retrieve. Come back to me with that toy, and this is a nice kind of play way to do it, building trust with those kind of hands coming in. You know, you might find you've got a breed where you can do a little bit of manual play, you know, almost like a tag game. Push, run away. Obviously young dogs can use their teeth on you then, so you've got to be careful with what breed. Now this is another young dog I'm working with, Jags. He's a dog that I've bred. He's about 1 year old. He lives with a family. They have done a little bit of taking things off of them, and they've done too much general throwing the toy. And then what are you going to do when the dog brings the toy back? You're going to take it. He knows that. He doesn't want you to take it. He's not going to think about the next step of you throwing it. So consequently, he's been running off with toys and not coming back in. So I've used a 2-toy scenario and swaps, but here I'm beginning to build in a behavior. Come and touch my hand. So I'm letting him win the toy. You do a little hand target, back of my hand. He didn't quite touch them, but I still clicked him. So each time I use a marker word win that tells the dog when they're correct. Win means the toy is on me. So touch my hand. He drops it. I encourage him to pick it up, bring it to my hand. Okay, which is ultimately what I want when I'm building up the play. Excellent. Okay, and then he gets his click. So let's go on to look at some of element 3. So this is the release. Start with an older dog of mine, Kiki. She hasn't been taught the release in this way, just to kind of show it, but she is older. She's more experienced, and obviously she's a trained dog, so she understands the training process. So doing a little bit of just, letting her win that toy, letting her feel good, letting her drag mummy, and then, let her win, and then kind of backing off and drawing the dog into me. Okay, so I take the collar and I just go onto a chin rest. So my hands on the chin, nice and loose on the toy. When she lets go, I'm just this is a little bit kind of further on stage, but just blocking her a little bit and just waiting the rules of the game. You've got to wait for me to say win again, and I want you looking at me, and that helps you just control that arousal level. So again, take the collar onto the chin rest. She lets go. She looks at me. I'm trying to get to do a behaviour now, so I want you to do a behaviour rather than just look at me. Obviously, I don't want to give my dog a cue to do a behaviour unless they're paying attention and looking at me. So here you can see I've started adding the kind of word on. And I said the word, no response, so I go in, get the collar as soon as she lets go, because I'm adding the word on here and I've changed the criteria. You can see the click is really quick again, so that's what I would have started off with the chin rest. Yeah, so I say the word, dog doesn't know what the word of, that was the best one she did. So I said the word, just reached a little bit in and she got the idea. So I've done a little bit of work on the release. We're going to have a little bit of fun at the end of the session, where she feels like she's really, really strong and kind of pulling me over, and that pull on the toy. Okay, allowing her to win. Moving around, keeping that game going, making her feel good. She's pulled mummy right over. Confidence building, jumping over your body, just getting confidence with the kind of handling. So that's one way of teaching the release. Now you've got to be a bit careful with collar with young puppies, because you need to have done your foundation on your collar work, otherwise you could get mouthing at your hand. So sometimes food reward, depending on whether your dog's foodie or not. So here I am with Kenzo, and what I'm doing here is I'm just making the word tar is my release cue equals food. So tar equals food. Tar equals food. So a little bit of classic conditioning in here. Let's build an association with this word. Okay, then when he looks at me, I'm going to go into a win, and then I'm going to play with a toy. So I very much have a different marker word. I have win for a toy, yip for food. Okay, so here what I said, in the middle of that play, I said tar, which should mean food to him. Okay, obviously there's an arousal with the toy play, so whether he can hear it in this situation. So you can see I'm doing short bits of play to see if I can get success on the release. Just gave him a little bit of excuse me. He goes and checks out a piece of, tissue on the floor, because he's all, I've done something wrong. So a little kind of mild kind of correction of going for the toy there kind of caused that. Again, so each time he's tugging with the toy, I'm not building the arousal too much. I say the word tar, okay? He's not responding, and they won't initially. And then I slowly move my hand towards the treat bag. The treat bag will be a cue to him that the treat's coming at this early stage of training anyway. So I say the word tar. He doesn't respond. I slowly go to the treat bag. As he sees my hand going in the treat bag, he lets go. That's my market moment where I go yip. So yip is my marker that means food. Okay, and then we're back into the win. And by combining food and toy, again, that's another way. Not only am I teaching the release, but I'm controlling the arousal within that play. Okay, oops, Bambi legs. Be careful with adolescent dogs doing tight turns. That's why I tended to do it kind of in straight lines rather than tight turns. So you do need to be careful of that with adolescents. Okay, so that was a nice release he did there. Yeah, so I always go, excuse me, just a little, excuse me, that's not the rule. Okay, look at me. I've clicked him I've clicked him there because I felt his arousal level was a bit high. So I'm doing some clicking and feeding, bring that arousal level down, and then I can put you back onto the toy, just controlling that arousal level within my toy play. And you can see we're in a completely different environment here. He's quite interested in dogs and people outside. So I've been doing a lot of clicking him for looking at people outside. So win when he looks at the person, and we run off and play, just to form that association, dog equals play, person equals play, just to regain that kind of attention onto me. Okay, so you can see he's pretty good in this environment now, kind of concentrating on his toy play. I've been working with him for 9 days here. Okay, so he's got very into kind of my training and my techniques. I'm just doing a little bit of, can you now kind of let go of that toy if it's not on my hand? There's going to be lower arousal if he's not tugging, so we're just doing some running around tar. And then I waited for him, just gave him a little pause there to see if he was going to respond, and that was really good. And this was on a separate day. You can see I'm beginning to use the toy. This is element 4 as a reinforcer. Okay, so as I said, I've done a lot of clicking in for looking at things in the environment. I'm now building up in this session to try and put that on a cue. Check it out. Check something out in the environment. Okay, if check it out means look at something and he gets his toy, he's going to check out new things and immediately check back in with me, because he's going to expect to click via the kind of pattern within the training. So you can see I'm going to give a head signal to look at someone. He looks at them. As he spots them, I say my marker word win on the eye contact. Okay, then we have a little play. So we can see we've got two dogs in the environment, and he's a little bit anxious around other dogs. Obviously he's very inquisitive because he's a young dog, so he does a lot of barking at them because he doesn't know what to do. So I didn't click him then because I didn't want him to look at it. Now I'm giving him the head signal, so when he looks, win, and then we play with a toy. Okay, so a really useful skill to teach them. So you can see how I'm using this for a reinforcer, but I'm using it environmentally here rather than getting him to do a sit or a down, and using it as a reinforcer for those kind of behaviours. So again, I'm going to try and get him to look at this lady. So I do a head turn one way, see how he looks the other way, just looking for something. So you can see how the early stages of the training, so that needs progressing. It's not ready to put onto a verbal cue yet. So I want to take him into different environments, different scenarios, working on that, for a period of kind of maybe a month or so before I put it on a cue. So here we're going to look at all the elements here. So this is me out training a young lurcher called Dash, very again into dogs and movement in the environment, being typical of his breed. You can see how far he can see things from. He's looked at that man, okay, as he's disengaged. So this is the stage. I've done lots of work with Kenzo and lots of work with Dash. The play's a little bit more frantic to keep him with me because he can disengage from the play if it's not exciting enough. He needs that high level of excitement, high level of running around. So you'll see me doing a lot more kind of letting him kind of self run around as much as I can. I'd do this and extend it to a long line. You can see how fast he goes. Now I am going to do a little bit of two toy work with him. I probably haven't realised that I've dropped that toy there. So trying to get him to come into me. I think he's got the toy wrapped around his head, so he's quite happy with me coming into him because we've worked on that. Back into the toy play again. Keep that movement going. And I want to keep the kind of session going for, obviously this has got to build up over time. He did give up on play after kind of short spurts, but we've kind of built that up. I just realised I've dropped my second toy. So here we are, I'm giving him a swap cue, and I want to swap him onto the second toy. Now this is a useful tool to be able to control that arousal level as well, because obviously you can build arousal quite a lot on just the one toy. So if I can say swap, if he doesn't swap, I let go of the toy, and then I'd bring him onto the other toy. Okay, so at first I just let go of the toy because they have no idea what the cue means, until then just make the other toy more interesting. But that's a really useful tool to have. Okay. Now I'm going to go on and do the chin rest. This is early stages for Dash. He's quite excitable. And then I'm going to get him to do a behaviour. He likes to do high touches. You can see it, just a little bit of nipping at me there where I've just built in the arousal. I'm not going to correct that nipping. I've built the arousal up to that level. Okay, and as he begins to learn to control his emotions a little bit better, those behaviours will go. So I'm not too concerned about that. I can just be a bit quicker with my click points, and also to try and do a little bit of feeding with him in between, but he's not that foodie outside, hence why I'm not using food here. I'm just having to manage the scenario with toys. Plenty of running around. He kept me fit for sure. Okay, so let's look at these in a more advanced kind of setting. So this is my young dog who's 2 years old, Tinks. I do competitive sports with her. So obviously it's more kind of vital for her to be switched on, responding to cues, first time, every time, to be motivated, to be able to work in different environments and to be able to deal with a high level of distraction. So I bring that into my training. Think you need to be able to call your dogs away from in the middle of a play session with another dog, highly arousing, highly distracting. Can your dog respond to cues in those environments? And that's certainly what I have to build up, and what I would do with any of my dogs anyway, is build that up in all different environments so that my dogs can respond to me, no matter whether they're chasing a deer, chasing a squirrel, chasing around with dogs, that they will respond to me, and their cues are, they want to respond via motivational training. So here you can see we're just doing some swaps with Tinks, some wins, getting her to do behaviours. Obviously I'm chaining multiple behaviours here together. Can you do 3 or 4 things before I click you onto the toy? Again, controlling the arousal level using swaps and using 2 toys. I think she made a little mistake there. Mummy's going to help cover for her, so it's not an issue. Nice. And what we're going to build up here. So obviously I've got win means the toy is on mummy, to play with mummy, but you can also be a bit clever in your training here. Actually, I'm building in distractions there. Don't look at that toy when you look back at mummy. Good. So we're dealing with some distraction training. Keep looking at mummy, and then you get the other toy. And what I'm going to be building into this session is even further distractions. Okay, so she can cope with that. And I'm not asked her to do behaviours. That's just what I have. Just, can you look at mummy? Can you look at mummy while you do this? So I've thrown a toy on the floor. I have a separate marker which tells her to get that toy. But for the minute, she is thinking too much about that toy. So I'm not going to send her onto a toy she's thinking about. Plenty of distraction whilst doing behaviours. You can see that little think about that toy there. So I'm not going to send her onto that toy. I'm only going to send you on using a different marker word, a marker word to go behind her as beep. Okay, so you should see when I say that word, she'll fly and get that toy on the floor. Okay, this is where a swap is useful as well. Obviously, she's a collie, she's a herding breed, she loves running. Okay, and when the different directional kind of cues were built in, she loved the running out. Okay, so by putting the swap in there, I'm devaluing that toy a little bit that she's running out to, just keeping that kind of balance in the toy rewards, so that I can get the kind of response that I want. Now I have a backward direction cue, a forward direction cue, and a to her left and to her right direction cue. Little jump cue there, up to you whether you'd want that to come in to save me bending over to get the toy. So there's a toy to her left, there's a toy to her right and to her left. Okay, so I have pop means to the left, zip means to the right. So if I say that kind of marker word pop now, she should go to her left. Okay, so lots of fun that you can have with these. And this is all heightening the dog's concentration, the ability to listen to me and listen to words. And that's what I need when I'm calling my dog back, even in a basic kind of form. Okay, that's what I call the kind of middle position. Great for confidence building. Break releases you from that middle. Okay, so you can see how much fun you can have with these. And then we're using scent here as a we're using the toy here as a reinforcer in scent. So this is Tink saying, you know, she's very excitable about her toy work, but you can see that she can still do a calm exercise and search a room thoroughly. What she's looking for is a little target odor. It is actually on those black drawers to the left of those drawers. But you can see how she's really into kind of work mode, searching around, okay, not over aroused in her work, searching quite thoroughly around the room, trying to find that target odour. I use a tool called traffic light hand, okay, which means flat hand, means hold behaviour. You can see how still she goes before I click her to reward her for that toy. So it's just showing you how you can, you know, build up to using it as a reward for you know, where you want lower level of arousal. Enjoy your dogs and enjoy your play. Thank you for listening.